Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a little while since the last video. Figured we'd check in on the car again and see how things are going. Today our focus is going to be mostly on the interior of the car, getting it cleaned up, getting it prepped. Next thing after that's going to be the roll bar and that sort of stuff. But for today, it's just finishing up the little bits of the dash that we didn't get done after we did the deconstruction last video. And we'll take it from there. So I've taken the door panel off and got our control switch off. You can see it's just a pressure fit in here, or not pressure fit, but there's little clips on either side, there and there, and there and there, and then that had these little clips on the actual buttons themselves, and it looks like this is an all-in-one unit. It's got the relay and both window buttons. Well, I'm going to keep my windows around, so I'm going to try to figure out a way to just mount this, probably right here, with a screw and a strap, something along those lines, and then we can run all of our cabling right into where the speaker box was, zip tie it up in there, clean it up a little bit, and then we can move on to figuring out how to handle the door opener itself. Maybe I just leave that where it is. You can see this is just a pull to open the door right here. And then we also have our door lock back here that I'd like to come up with something, either disabling it completely or just making it a little bit easier. Maybe cut this down to right here, remove this and replace it with something else. So let's figure out first the switches, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so I was able to get the two plugs out that I wanted to use, so I'll maintain my controls for the mirrors and maintain the controls for the windows. And now it's just trying to figure out where to mount them up. I think I'm just going to zip tie this right here because I think it'll plug in just fine. Or maybe I'll make a little screw plate mount here. So screw this in, put a little plate on it, and then zip ties around the back. Or maybe two screws will work. We'll try that. We'll just drill two small holes here, zip tie around the back side, see what happens. I'm going to mount it right here. Let's plug it in, and then it's going to go right here like this. That means I want to have a zip tie here, up top, and on the bottom. Take my center punch, make one up midway here, point. Okay, I get that good. I can't even see it. Let's try that again. Right there. Okay. There we go. And then take a zip tie. Slide it through. Should probably want this behind on here. Let's see if it's big enough. Yep, that'll work. Now I got to do the same thing down on the other side below, so I can wrap one around the bottom so it doesn't move up and down too much, and then I can tighten them down a little more. It's mounted nice and tight. Buttons work. I gotta, oh, that's binding in the way. Okay. Bring it down a little lower, tighten it up a little more. Both directions work on both sides. So what I ended up doing here is just taking a zip tie around the back of the connectors, putting it nice and tight right up here, and then this helps it, this little zip tie here actually helps it from not moving around too much. I don't know how long that'll last when the car's rattling around, but for right now, race car. I don't need to worry too much about it being super stable. I just want it to be accessible and not rattling around too much. So that works. For the door handle is actually pretty easy. This is just pressure fit, this little thing, onto the cable. So I just kind of unplugged it, and you can see it's like a little threaded here on the steel cable. But now once I do that, I can really easily just pull this with my, 2 fingers, get it on it, and go. So that's all I need to do. And now all I'm gonna do is probably zip tie it here, make a little hole here, and so that it's out of the way and not flapping all over the place when I'm driving. And we're done with that one. That was easy. For the locking mechanism, I think we're going to do the same thing, and because to keep it from rattling all over the place, I just need to keep pressure against it here, and so I'm just going to drill a little tiny hole right there, and then I'll put a zip tie around it so it holds it tight-ish, and then it still has plenty of room to work. So if I accidentally lose power with the door locked and the windows up, which should never happen in this car, but hey, it would suck to have to like cut a hole in it because of it being locked. So let's do it. On the interior of the car, we got a bunch of different plugs that I wanted to keep around just so I have them. Not that, I mean, the fog lights are still in the car, might as well keep the plug. The dimmer, I mean, all I've got is the central dash, but we might as well keep the dimmer around. So we got to find a place to mount these as well, whether we're going to mount them to the actual frame or down here, I don't know. Same thing with the trunk release, or hood release, sorry. Got the hood release down here. Got to figure out a good place to put that and mount it permanently. Got to clean up some of the cabling up here, which is just wound up right now. I should zip tie that and shove it back in there. And then we got to actually mount our cluster because it's just free floating right now. So that might require making a little plate and then using the factory mount points over here and maybe making some extensions up here just so that it can sit pretty much where it sat from the factory and still be pretty visible. And then the same thing goes for our HVAC controls. I do want to maintain those. That looks pretty easy. I think I can just get some extended bolts and go right into our right into the frame here. And I might actually just weld some bolts sticking out so that I can just put nuts on the top and there's just posts sticking out that I can suck this into with, mount it right there. Clean up some of this stuff, which isn't necessary anymore. Put some of these buttons back in place. Clean up the remainder of the wiring harness over here, which is just zip ties. And then the interior is pretty much set to go for kind of track day number 1. I think the other thing I'm going to try today is getting the last bit of carpet out. It doesn't look too bad. I've got one bolt to take out here, and then I can lift it up and over the e-brake. Maybe I need to take that out just to get it off, but it doesn't look too bad. The hard part's going to be getting it out from underneath the heater core and underneath the frame rail here, the interior frame rail. I think I might be able to do this by just zipping these guys off with an impact and then loosening the ones over here just so I have enough play in this whole structure without having to take it out to yank the carpet out. And then that way I don't have to cut the carpet and somebody else could go on using it because it's in pretty darn good shape. I don't see why I wouldn't want to just sell it to somebody. So let's give that a try too. All right, so it looks like GM pre-perforated this because they knew that no one would ever be able to get this carpet out if they needed to service it in one piece. So as soon as I started to pull, the little perforations actually started to pop, and what I pulled out is actually in totally fine shape, except for this little square right here that's completely hidden behind the dash. So go figure, man. That is one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. All right, next up we got hood pop, and what I think I'm going to do is it'll fit right here in between these two if I bend this tab out a little bit, and then I can straighten out the factory mounting tab and then just put a little plate between it and mount it right to this guy right here, and then it should be in a nice clean place, out of the way, foot's not going to get caught on it or anything like that, and we'll see how that works. So we got to look in the scrap metal pile and see if we can find something that might work to build a little plate out of. I think that'll actually work perfect. So we can cut this down and use it for the plate, and just cut it right here and here, and maybe we'll just bend that flat, and then we'll just put self-tapping screws in there, go into the stock screw holes of where that bracket was, should hold it in place. Let's do it. Alright, so you can see I can tap in right in there, and then use the stock screw holes for that, and it should mount up just fine. So I just gotta go get a self-tapper and find a screw that'll fit through that hole, and we're good to go. So my dimmer, I think I can mount right up onto the plate here as well, so that's nice and easy. And then I just got to figure out where the fog light switch goes. Now I got my fog light button pressable there, my dimmer right there, and my trunk latch under here on this one little plate, and that should be out of the way of my knee. So if I get in the car, yep, all out of the way, no problems there. Next up, we got the OBD sensor. Maybe I'll just mount that to the same plate as well up here. I don't see why I shouldn't. We got our fancy little plate. It's not even close to fancy, but everything's out of the way. Nothing in the way of driving position. Got access to all my controls again, and the ODB port, or OBD port, and it clears my tools. Plug them in, and away they go. I took all of the cabling that used to go all the way up here and provided the OnStar and active mirror and phone buttons and all the crap that I won't need. Took that all, wound it all up, coiled it, and put it with the zip tie in here. It's not going anywhere, and it's out of the way. If I ever need it again, I can get access to it for whatever reason, but not dangling, and that's fixed. All right, so my main harness here, that doesn't have anything holding it free, so you can see it can wobble around quite a bit. So what I'm going to do is just use this as a strap down and just build a little strap over it, probably on the back side here as well, though this isn't as bad, and that way it can't wobble all over the place. And to do that, I'm just going to use a little bit of strap, and then I'm just going to wrap it with some electrical tape so it doesn't catch on anything, and that should hold it down. Last little bit, took my traction control button and just taped it right to the harness here, basically where it was from the factory. I don't even know if I'll ever get that working again, but I wanted to maintain the button just in case I do. So now we got little straps, and then our harness now can't come off and hit us while we're driving. For the four-way switch, I just decided to tape that up right to the harness. It's just electrical tape, and I just put a couple of loops on it so it's not going anywhere, and then it works. I just taped up the airbag connectors and everything, and then what I'm going to just do is lift this up, and I think I should be able to get this up, or maybe go underneath, but get enough room to just shove them back there so they're out of the way and not just hanging out in the front. I took these things to the trunk release and the bolster release, and just zip tied them over to the harness here so that they're out of the way and not just dangling in there. I still got to figure out, I got to put a handle on this, so I may just go find some sort of T-handle or old bicycle brake. I don't know what I'm going to do there. This one I don't really need one. It takes no effort at all to pop the trunk release, but those bolster releases, it takes some tension to yank on that, so I want to get a better handle for that. So my idea for this, I mentioned it earlier, but what I'm going to do is go to the store. I do not have any in my bolt pack, but I'm going to get a bolt that I can just weld right back into there, stick right out through the factory hold, and then get a couple of nuts that go on it, so I can have a set nut so it has the right depth on it. I'm going to do the exact same thing down here, so have these right about here, and set up a few bolts. I'm just going to weld right to the frame here, and then that can mount up. Those are easy to cut off later if I ever really want to. Not a big deal. It's simple to move around. And then I got to figure out how to mount the tops back somehow so that I don't get too much vibration. I may not even worry about that. I may just run it and see how it goes with just the bottoms anchored. And if it doesn't vibrate too much, then I won't even worry about the top. If not, I might just put some sort of rear anchor on it. The other thing that I don't have right now is any sort of hood on this, meaning that if it's a really bright day, I may not be able to see it. So I may have to figure out a hood. Not going to worry about that right now. And the last thing I did was I took all of the wiring for the radio, and it's just duct tape, electrical taped up and zip tied to the bar so that it's out of the way, but didn't have to cut anything or move anything. And now outside of the cluster and the HVAC, everything is nice and tucked away and tidied inside the interior. So let's go to the store, get some bolts, finish it up. So here's my plan. I'm going to take these. Now I got bolts that are ever so slightly too big, so I am going to drill out the holes just a little, open them up a little, and then I'm going to bolt these in with a nut on each side, get this flat level across the back, and then I can just stick it in to the car, mark it up, and then weld these heads right to the main frame rail, and then I'll have a nice little post where this can mount up. So let's drill out some stuff and then do some measuring. We can see that the rear is a little offset here, so see how it's sitting a little bit lower, so I've got to drive this side in a little further. Once we do that and get the two level, then we can go stick it in the car, mark some circles, and tack some welds in place. Alright, I'm going to have to get this out of the way. The way I ran this, I'm going to have to cut this off because that was stupid and that didn't work well because it's going to be in the way of this. So I got to cut this zip tie off that I just put on a few seconds ago, move this whole harness off to the side here so I can now fit this up against here and mark it with a Sharpie. Got to take this guy out too. And this, all the things that I just did, I gotta undo again. Seems like I do that a lot. You can see my bolts just line right up here. And I just have to mark them, which means I'm gonna have to put down the camera to do that. And then got enough room and clearance in the back to plug our plugs in. And just tack weld those all in place. And we have a mount point. These three are good. This one I cockeyed a little bit, so I gotta get a hammer out, bend it out a little bit that way, and then we should be good. We got it all in. So if you look in the back, that's just welded on, and then I've got a jam nut here, and then a nut going here, and it's the same on all four sides, and now I got a nice stable place to mount my controls. It'll work well. Since I'm going to be welding up in here, I really don't want to have my steering wheel on the car, and I don't want the seat in here. I don't want to get any of this stuff in the way. So I got to take that out. This is just sitting in there right now, and as soon as I'm done with that, we'll do the exact same thing to that as we did with that guy over there. And then we'll be done with the interior dash and everything along those lines. I've done the same thing. I put washers on this time because these ones are a little bit uneven, but exact same plan as what I did with the HVAC controls. And now I got to go mark them in the car and then weld these bolts on, and we're good to go. We got our studs welded on here, and it's as proven last time. Whoops. It's a pain in the ass to actually do this with the camera on, so I'm just going to turn the camera on and do a little magical snap, and there we go. You can see I got my bolts in here, and over on the other side, and it doesn't move around too much. We'll see once we actually get in if I gotta put something in the top here. And I think I'm still gonna build some sort of cover on it so that it has some degree of shielding from the sun on hot days. But we're pretty much done inside the car. All right, let's make sure it all works. Key in, on. Is it plugged in? Oh, well, it would help if I plugged it in. Probably should turn off the car before I plug it in. Everything's on. Everything works. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. Got quite a bit done today. There's still quite a few little things to check off the list. Let's take a look real quick at what it is that needs to be done on the car. So, got to finish the seat. There's not one in there right now. Everything else in the interior is done. We need our cage roll hoop in the back so that we can put our harnesses in. I do have the harnesses sitting right here, so we got to put those in. We've got to put this fender back on. That one's in fine shape. And then we have to actually fix this fender, which is going to be another nice mess of fiberglass and fun for another episode. After that, the only other thing I really want to do is brakes, brake fluid, trans fluid, diff fluid, fresh oil, and then we take it out on the track and see what happens. I'm going to have to figure out how to get it to the track. That's for another episode, though.